Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Here's Bella. I've had a few messages. Everybody wondering how Bella's doing, how big she's getting. So, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. TGIF, it's Friday.
Yeah, hanging out with me on my left.
Craig Uglin. You can find me on Facebook and
Right.
Instagram.
If I turn around, are you on my left?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Craig, you hesitated at that. You know I'm always right.
Oh, we know.
Martha Makashadi, you can find me on Facebook.
I had a really good response to last week's special episode. Do you guys hear anything about it?
It was good.
Yeah,
I tell you,
fun.
it had good movement. We got pretty heartfelt with it. It meant a lot to us to find out more about your shiny acronyms and what it meant to you, instead of just looking at your shiny forehead every Friday.
Right?
And learning more about that, and look forward to getting a shirt that says "Be." What'd you say? Be shiny.
Be shinier.
Be
The
shiny.
next shirt's coming out.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
Hey, well, we have a lot going on this show. I want to start out with reading actually a couple testimonials. My daughter died in a car crash. You guys know that, and a lot of people that are listening know that. But here's what some students are saying, and I just felt, the reason that we do this show is to really try to look at what's factual, not what it feels like, or not necessarily use hyperbolic terms and all these things, and bring in some nuance and stuff. But this is really the reason why these students let me read this. I'd like all to know that today during third period, I was involved in one of the most moving speeches I have ever heard. It was about a father who lost his daughter to distracted driving and his experience with it. Everyone I talked to was moved to tears, as was I. When you hear speakers come in, it's usually the same old "don't text and drive, kids," but this one was different. This one is one I will remember forever. It was a different form of speech, and it was just a very moving experience. Thank you, Matt Logan, for coming into our school and making such an impact. And this student left the name omitted. I know who the student is, but they didn't want their name mentioned. And this one also, Matt, I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story in Blue Earth yesterday. As a 2011 graduate who went to school here and is now employed here, I couldn't help but think about the pre-prom seminars that I attended while I was still a student. I don't remember much other than the various law enforcement officers reading off cue cards, which was also very eye-opening, but more fearful than anything. But after hearing you speak yesterday, I think that is something that would left a different kind of mark with 18-year-old me, and certainly stuck with 23-year-old me. Your testament to your daughter's life was incredibly charismatic, and you certainly have a gift for speaking to others and not just in the large group setting, I am presuming. Although the circumstances are extremely unfortunate, what you are doing by sharing your personal account is so important for youngsters who could be in the same situation in the blink of an eye. Again, thank you, Jay. Blue Earth, J as in just the letter, because they didn't want their name, from Blue Earth area high schools. And the reason I say that today is not to say, hey, look at me, wow, I'm doing such good things. It is not that at all. It is simply the fact that I made a promise, if I was going to do that I was going to be as transparent as possible and provoke thought, right? Not to go in there and do anything other than that, just provoke thought, help people to think about things maybe in a different way. And clearly the students are reacting to that in a positive way. And I think I don't want people to misunderstand what we're trying to do with these stories. It is simply to provoke thought. It is to create conversation, good, positive conversation. And thank you guys for being here today, because we're going to talk about some hard things. Let's talk about some gun control right away. We're going to get into some heavy stuff right now.
Bang, bang.
Exactly. And we're also, we have some Super Bowl ads in our entertainment section that we're going to talk about in our local section. And the reason we do local section, I know that over 50% of our viewership is actually not local. And so I had a question a couple of weeks ago, why are you doing a local segment? Because if it's happening in our local area, it's probably happening or something similar in other local areas. So it can be kind of relatable in that sense. That's why we do local. So in that local segment, we're going to talk about pools closing, pools opening, readers reacting to it in the community, things like that. We're going to talk about how 4 million people quit their jobs in the month of April. Yes, we're in June, but it takes about 6 weeks for those numbers to kind of come back. So that's why we're talking about this in June. What am I missing? I think we're going to just get into some guns, huh? Should we get into some guns?
Bring on the gun show.
Bring on the gun show. Well,
Literally.
Sun's out,
Literally.
guns out.
Sun's out, guns
Guns
out. That's a military term, you bet. Sun's out, guns out.
So
All
we're going to
those
start
things
with Governor Greg Abbott signs a bill to allow Texans to carry handguns without a permit. San Antonio, in the shadow of the iconic Alamo and flanked by Republican state lawmakers and the leader of the National Rifle Association, Governor Greg Abbott on Thursday signed a package of bills aimed at enhancing gun rights in Texas. Today, I signed documents that instill freedom in the Lone Star State, Abbott said to cheers from several dozen gun rights supporters. I'm going to skip down and not read some of this, like the number of the bill and some things, but I want to talk about this a little bit. We have some people there who stopped gun attacks with guns. And there's a Jack Wilson who fired a single shot to take down the gunman who killed 2 people at West Freeway Church of Christ in Fort Worth in Texas in December of 2019. And also the Stephen Wilford, who so do you guys remember this story, the church where the gunman went in? Yeah, I remember that very, very, very vividly. And so he was there in support of this. He wounded the gunman so that he couldn't kill any other people. But now I want to also then skip down to, there's some protests and some of that, but the Democratic opposition, Texas Democrats and gun control activists have denounced permitless carry, which they say would increase gun violence in Texas and make it easier for criminals to obtain a gun. Democrats also have expressed frustration that the legislature did not pass bipartisan gun control measures in the aftermath of multiple mass shootings in the state. Progress Texas Executive Director Ed Espinoza said Wednesday that Abbott and Republicans are out of touch with voters. I want you to hear that very clearly about this gun control thing. He says that they are out of touch with voters. And I'm going to circle back to that in a minute. But that's very, very important. In passing permitless carry, Republicans are saying that you no longer need a license to carry a gun, but you still need one to vote. Let me say that again. I'm going to stress on this gun control thing, and I'm going to get really heavy on this because wording is extremely important. In passing permitless carry, Republicans are saying that you no longer need a license to carry a gun, but you still need one to vote.
That's a quote, though, from Espinoza.
And,
that's not a statement, but that's a quote. Yeah.
And Espinoza said that also in his statement. And he also said the public was not asking for this, and voters overwhelmingly opposed the measure, but right-wing legislatures forced it through anyway.
Wow.
Now, these things are important. I'm going to read some statistics, and we're going to, again, I'm going to hammer on this gun control thing. Most Texans oppose removing the requirement to obtain a state permit to carry a handgun, according to a recent poll by the University of Texas and Texas Tribune. 59% of Texans object to the idea, though 56% of Republicans supporting the measure, the survey found. Blah, 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 blah. Now, here's what I'm going to do here with this. He talked about the voters not wanting guns. Check out this story. Guns in America it is the headline saying nearly 40 million guns were purchased legally in 2020 and another 4.1 million bought in January
Wow.
of 21.
I would question their statistic that only 56% of
That's
Republicans.
Who are they
exactly my
polling?
point,
That's what I wanna
because
know.
Gun
Right.
sales. So let me say, I want to say this, and then I want you guys to weigh in on this, because here's what this truly says. How do you, let's even call it vote. You vote with your pocketbook, right?
Yeah.
And people are buying guns. Period.
Absolutely.
So that
Legally.
says, so when you get a phone call, the point being here, when you get a phone call, will you take a survey on if you prefer brown cows or white cows? What are you going to do?
Click.
Exactly. If somebody calls you and says you take a survey on gun control, what are you going to do?
Click.
50-50, I'm out.
Yeah.
Probably 80-20.
Right.
80% I'm out, 20% I'm in, depending if I want them out too.
Yep.
Okay.
It-
And if the people, and I'm just gonna, because there's statistics or surveys on surveys, right?
Yeah.
And the people who take the surveys are usually people in opposition of what the survey is. That is
Ironically.
generally
Yeah. Ironically.
the
yeah.
large percentage of it. Yes.
Right.
So if you actually look at real things and real numbers, and that is why I wanted to read the statements of what students say, it's about provoking thought and looking at what is real. So that means that you have to look at multiple things.
Multiple sources.
Facets,
yes,
yeah.
multiple sources and
Facets of
figure
it.
it out.
Yep.
So I've talked enough on this one.
I'd like to say the proof are in the numbers, Matt, from the article that you compared it to, being contradictory to what the statement says about, the voters don't want that. And we've all known Texas as don't mess with Texas. I'm a red state. But digging into this article some more, when they said the Republicans far right were pushing this down the throat, a lot of people gave the Republicans a lot of flack because they said they could have actually made it better and more incentivized and easier and different things like that. And they actually didn't do as much as what they thought they could have done as a Republican party, and a Republican governor could have signed for it. The other thing is, it is for there's still limitations. People that are balking at the people who are protesting it. There's still limitations put into place, parameters put into place. So it's not a free for all where everybody goes out and can get a gun and carry it. It is permitless for open carry and carry and conceal, both. And also, Texas is the 21st state to do this. So that means almost half our states are like this right now.
And keep in mind something that you didn't read from the article is that they also increased penalties for people that were not supposed to be carrying guns.
So there
that did
definitely
have
are
guns.
incentives to have a permit. There definitely are incentives, like some of the signage and different things like that to keep it going. Yeah.
Well, my point was, if you're a felon and you're not supposed to have a gun, you have bigger penalties in Texas. That was part of the bill. So if you're legal,
You're right.
please carry your gun. But if you're illegal and you're carrying, we're going to punish you more.
You bet.
Because you're not supposed to do it.
You bet.
And Matt touched in on the quote, you read it a couple times, of if you need an ID to vote, why don't you need an ID to carry? It didn't say that you don't have to have an ID to carry. You don't have to have a permit.
Correct.
Is Texas require voter ID?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
So that was kind of contradictory too from them as well,
Right.
to say.
And it goes to the old adage of the people that shouldn't have guns
You
aren't
bet.
following the laws anyway.
Anyways, you bet.
So if
You bet.
if you enforce the laws that you have, there are more than enough laws to prevent people that shouldn't have guns from having guns, but they're also not the ones following those laws.
And remember, this is
So-
part of our constitutional right, you guys. This is part of our Second Amendment.
It's the second one, the second most important.
Yes, constitutional right.
Well,
To
maybe
write
it's
and
the
bear
most
arms.
important, because in case the first one doesn't work out.
You bet.
Right.
I was going to read you right from that. Okay, so the Second Amendment, let's just go off on a little tangent here. The Second Amendment is naturally divided into two parts. Its prefatory clause, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, and its operative clause, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And that's because to keep government from taking away our rights. So the right to bear arms, I mean, this is our right, people. And we all know Texas and some of those southern states are a little more, aggressive with, how do I want to say it? Shooting, tooting, boasting,
Rootin'
boasting,
tootin' cowboys.
yeah, that kind of thing. But it goes with the permit list goes with the open carry and the carry and conceal permit ability as well. So not just open carry, but the carry and conceal as well. So like you were saying, Craig, there's still parameters put into place and harsher parameters put into place. There are incentives, obviously, to get a permit, meaning like some stores can sign no carrying here, but it has to be certain clauses. Otherwise, if you went through the work to get a permit, take the classes and everything like that, then you have more flexibility or
Freedoms.
more opportunities than the person who is just permitless.
And it goes back to if people with guns protect people without guns.
Yep.
And if you go into a store to do harm, to rob a store, and you see 3 people in there with a sidearm, you're probably going to give a second thought to what you're about to do.
Yeah.
The gentleman that stopped the mass shooting in the church. There was one person with one gun that stopped multiple people from killing. When you look at the most of the mass shootings, those guns weren't legally obtained. Most, not all of them, but most of those were not. The people didn't follow the laws, and they got the guns anyway.
Yeah.
Look at Chicago. Chicago is Exhibit A of what overbearance on gun control does.
Yeah.
The good people don't have the guns, but the bad guys do.
And Chicago has the strictest gun laws in the country. At least they used to. I'm pretty sure they still do. One thing I want to point out, though, is they did not say that you still need to go through the background check to buy the gun, right? It's not saying that it's
correct.
It's simply,
that's what I'm saying. It's not a free for all.
To carry,
yes,
right?
It's not a free for all.
It is not, right? And
there are parameters.
That's what so many people are missing in this. I read some comments on some of these things, and people are saying, getting all up in arms about it. And the fact is that you're still required to get a background checked, which I don't know if I agree with. But that's a different topic altogether, really. The Second Amendment is really clear. Like Martha May said, a well-regulated militia being necessary to I cannot read this for some reason, to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It is super clear. Guns are arms. I mean, does this count with swords?
You can kill people with a knife,
right? And so there was a mass sword killing somewhere, like over 30 people. What's that?
I think it was over in China.
I might have been. I can't remember where. Like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
30 people
with a knife.
Well, a sword.
Yeah,
but
a long knife.
Right. and so the point is, the point is that this is super clear that we are to keep and bear arms. The bear, what does that mean? On your person. That is exactly what that means. To keep them, you can keep them in your home or whatever, and to bear them. This is super clear. So really, any law, you might have to weigh against this. Should we get a permit to even buy one? Doesn't say get a permit to keep and bear an arm.
You know what I found interesting in looking into more of this is, and I know there is a church here in Rochester that has security teams, but in Texas there's a lot of them that have security teams, and they're talking about how now, because of this permitless law, It can help with these security teams, different things like that, enable them and empower them and have more numbers with that, and they incentivize with that as well. But they actually mention these church faith-based security teams because of that church shooting that have come up to play and mobilized with that. But when I was at church one day and they mentioned a security team, I never fathomed, an assault on yourself or on someone at church. But then going back to the video, they're saying how, or the bill, they brought up the gentleman who was there to testify and say, had he not had his weapon on him to take down that person who was trying to shoot up everybody at church, because at church you're vulnerable, and that's what they're saying, and why these church security detail teams are coming into place and more prominent and more popular, because people are vulnerable, and someone who's not in their right mind, or I don't want to say a bad guy, bad girl, that they are preying on the vulnerable while they're at church.
And that's always been the case.
Right.
I mean, all throughout history is people preying on the vulnerable.
Right.
We are getting some comments, and we're going to talk about the comments at the very end of the show, just FYI for everybody. We appreciate the comments too. We're definitely going to
comment and share.
Let's move into the economy segment here. I want to talk about 4 million Americans quit their job in April, and it is the highest in 2 decades. 4 million Americans quit their jobs during the month of April, smashing a 20-year record, the U.S. Department of Labor says. In a release on Tuesday, the department confirmed that the number of those who had quit jobs across the month increased to a series high of 4 million. It goes on and blah, blah, blah. And I think that some things that are important are in this other article from CNBC, similar headline. However, notice the difference here. Sparked by confidence, they can find better work in the headline. So they talk about how COVID-19 had some of their effects, and that it's the increase since COVID-19 shutdowns. And it talks about employers struggle to find people. Strong hiring demand could benefit workers. And I want to point out this. Nationwide, 15.4 million Americans remain on unemployment benefits as of mid-May, including roughly 11.6 million people and their families relying on pandemic-era programs created by the CARES Act. Let's weigh in on this.
What I find interesting, besides, I'm sure we'll get into the CARES Act stuff, but what I find interesting is that the talk about the minimum wage and how these employers, to coerce people to work for them, are lo and behold raising what they're paying.
Yep.
Supply and demand. If you're in demand, you're gonna get paid more. And these employers are finally having to come to terms with that. If they want to keep employees, they're gonna have to take care of them. So to me, that says we don't have to mandate that employers pay people more. It's kind of it'll work itself out. If they want good employees, they're going to have to pay for them. If they want skilled employees, they're going to have to pay for them. So I thought that was kind of neat in the article that it talked about that.
I'm not sure if I understand you correctly or not, but I would say there's so many people on unemployment still that what is that creating? It's not creating a good environment. If you're going to get, so what that does when you have people that are holding out for more money or demanding more money in supply demand in the labor force, what does that do? You go to McDonald's and now they're paying $18 an hour or whatever else. That drives the prices of everything up.
It does.
What else does it do? It creates kiosks that get rid of employees.
Yep.
And so help me understand a little bit better, like what you mean, because I don't see it. I don't see this as a positive at all.
Well, it's the argument of, well, you need to mandate $15 an hour for people to make a healthy living, and it's
So are you
it's-
saying that should be the way it is?
no, I don't
Okay.
think it should be government mandated. The employers they're coming to terms that if they want skilled employees, they need to pay them.
The $15 an
The
hour, or more than
$15
that, or less.
Well, it's the government needs to step out of the way. If they want skilled employees, they're going to have to step up to the plate and pay more. This is a little bit of a sidestep, but I watched a video this week, and they said, when you look at it, don't think of it $15 minimum wage or $12. It's not a minimum wage; it's a starting wage. You aren't going into McDonald's at 25 years old to build a career. You're going to McDonald's at 16 because it's a starting job. So I'm not sure how to tie that in with this article, but instead of the government forcing employees to pay so much, the employers are figuring out what they need to do to pay people to keep them there. Or they're going to find other ways to get the job done, like kiosks. And there was an article I saw where Walmart is looking at not having any cashiers.
Yeah,
in
they
the
can't
next-
afford it.
In the next
A
year.
lot of Walmarts
They can't afford the
don't.
payroll. What's the most expensive thing in running a business? Your payroll.
Right. Which the funny part of that is they have the self checkout and they have 3 employees standing there watching 4 self checkouts, but whatever. I digress. I guess my point is, don't have the government mandate how much people are paid. The employers will figure out what they need to pay their people, or they'll find alternatives to paying people, as in self-checkout.
Okay, so
lanes
talk about
or-
entry-level jobs. My little nephews who race cars got a part-time job. They're picking berries for pennies to a dollar every morning. It's an entry-level job
It's a
for
starting job.
entry-level
it's
job.
It's a starting job.
Entry level, meaning like start entry into the job.
Into the workforce.
They're having a hard time finding kids 14, 15 years old to do this job for 2 hours in the morning, that kind of thing. They're grateful, but they're having a hard time doing that because who's going to want to go out and do that when they can go to, as an entry level job, they can go to Walmart and stand there, or McDonald's and stand there for $15 an hour. You know what I mean? So how is that little farm producer that's growing berries going to be able to do that? He can't, put it on a computer and have somebody pick it and different things like that. That's a manually labored job.
And manual labor jobs are something that nobody wants to do anymore.
Right.
And that's sad. And this creates more of a place for that too. 15, 16-year-old kids don't want to do it because they don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they're getting, especially in the pandemic, they're getting these, even, their parents are paying them to stay home and babysit the other kids or whatever else.
And guess what? It's
And-
incentivized. The more you pick, the more you get paid.
Yeah, right.
How great
And-
is that?
You
Not
work
by the
harder, you
hour.
get
Yeah.
paid.
Yeah. So there you go.
So this is, to me, if this is a 20-year high, and we supposedly have like all these people that they're quitting, they're spinning this because they're quitting because there's all these other job opportunities. Well, the numbers actually don't add up that they're taking the jobs.
Right.
And that's my point, is they're not taking the jobs. They're quitting because they have all this free money.
Right.
It's
Like
simply
3/4 of
that's
them
what
are
the
doing the COVID
so
money.
I think this is a disaster. It's gonna get worse, in my opinion. I don't want to be pessimistic about it. I try to be an optimistic realist. And optimistically, I think that we can get through it and get to the other side of it, but not by handing out things for free.
They're talking about a lot of this will change come September when the CARES Act, is discontinued, and let alone some of the states that have already discontinued this CARES Act funding.
But we're starting to see some numbers come in from states, and a lot of them unofficial at this point, but we're starting to see numbers come in from states that they stopped the federal unemployment and things like that. And so now their job market is getting better already. Yeah. So that's really
Incentivize capitalism. Incentivize.
If you're going to be incentivized to sit in your computer and play games, then what are you going to do? Sit on your computer and play games.
Yeah.
Right. It'll be interesting to see what happens in October with the unemployment rates when all that money stops in September.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah,
a lot
we'll
of
probably
those
talk
help
about it
incentives.
again.
And we'll need that right before the holidays, right? I mean, we'll need people back to work right before the holidays.
For sure.
For the big retail push.
For
yeah.
sure.
And I think some of it comes back to you talk about your nephew picking strawberries and whatever happened to pride in work. You know, it
You bet.
isn't always about making $15 an hour. It's I went in and I did a good day's job.
You bet.
And that's almost non-existent nowadays.
Guess what? He's 13, 14 years old. Now he can put that. I had paper routes. I could put that on my resume that I had paper routes for a couple years as my first job.
At
So
14.
yeah, at
That
13,
says a
14 years
lot
old.
about-
Yeah. Daycare,
about
or
someone.
babysitting, different things like that. So, you know, look how materialistic and money, you know, that I take it back to California when they passed that, bill or law, union voting law that McDonald's had to pay $15 an hour. That started all this. It brought it across the states.
A lot of
Started
these
all
things
this.
are a ripple effect that we're starting to see, and that includes, you know, we talked about a couple weeks ago about what was it, 4.2% inflation or 4.8 or whatever it was. Doesn't matter, I guess. Specifically, the real number is a little bit more than that. We're seeing that in the grocery stores and the gas pumps and everything else. So,
and I want to touch back to how I said the pride in work. And so I'm on a scholarship selection committee, and it's for seniors and kids in college that have military relatives, and it's a scholarship for them for secondary school or college. And one of the things that we use to select the recipients is their work history.
Nice.
You know, if they've had a job since they were 13, if it's picking rocks or babysitting, or if they're not getting paid, if they're volunteering somewhere, they get points towards their selection because they may have been making $8 an hour as a babysitter or whatever.
Nice.
But at least they were doing something. And if they weren't doing it for money, they were volunteering in their community. And we take that into account of, you know, you get some kids that are in multiple activities every night, and they may not have the chance or the time to have a job, but at least they're doing something.
How involved they
outside
are.
of their house.
You bet.
How involved they are.
You bet.
So
let's go into the entertainment segment here. I think
Speaking of money.
I don't know that we can.
Speaking of money.
I know. I don't think we can really. There's not a whole lot more to really. I think we're more repeating ourselves on a lot of that.
I think they're pricing
we're gonna,
themselves out of the park. But
I
yeah.
think what we're going to do is we're going to with the jobs like that. I think we're going to in our economy, U.S. economy segment, we're probably going to be seeing some of these things over the next month. So we'll just keep an eye on it. In entertainment, though, and then we're going to do our local segment at the end here. NBC seeks record $6 million for Super Bowl commercials, and I was looking at this, and I was like super excited that you know this is a record price, and I'm thinking this is really good because there's a lot of people watching, and I thought this was going to be a positive story. Because this is a story that I brought to the table for this week, and I was so let down and disappointed. And I'm not, just honestly, I'm not going to read the article. We get the idea of what this means and what it looks like when they raise the price by that. And I'm going to say that the Super Bowl is losing viewers under 50. And they say that last year's Super Bowl, now in a pandemic, was the lowest number since 2007.
Well,
and so I'm going into this story thinking they're, $6 million. It's a record for these ads. And I'm thinking this is great news. People are excited. People are watching and all these things. And then, no, just kidding. This is just ridiculous. I was so disappointed. Honestly, I was sad about that.
An all-time low in viewership.
All-time low.
So how can you justify
raise
a premium for less?
So how I looked at it as, if you have this much and you're charging $20 million for this much, and you only have 4 people that will buy it, you have to charge each of them $5 million. So because they know less people are going to spend the money, now they're going to make it even more exclusive because they're going to still have to charge this much, but they can only they know their target audience of businesses that are going to purchase it are going to have to pay that. So that's why they got to charge more, is because they know they're losing revenue because businesses are dropping out and buying commercials. They know that.
Well, they're not buying commercials.
Right. They're not.
though.
That's what I'm saying. They're
can't
not. So
afford
they
it.
know if they got to
No.
charge that much as a business, if they know they got to charge that much for that big piece
But
of
now,
pie.
but now think of it like this, and the way I look at it is, you have a supply and demand thing. They're going to have a huge supply of commercials,
right.
and they're going to
Space
have
available.
no demand.
And they don't
So
have the
then
demand.
Shouldn't they be like $4 million instead of $6 million?
But they still have their cost in there. So they have, if they know they own, because of supply and demand.
Is it cost or is it profit?
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
yes, yes.
There's a big difference.
Yes, you bet. And look at who backed out last year. Didn't Anheuser-Busch back down and do some kind of donation to the pandemic? Didn't some of those big buck companies, instead of buying Super Bowl commercials at the end, they backed down and then they did some kind of donation or some kind of off thing because of the pandemic and everything going on. Plus, two, look at the year before. I'm just gonna throw that out there. The year before, President Trump bought some ads. So that added into, who is purchasing ads and different things like that. So no, it's not. Plus, look at the loss of respect that we have towards the football players right now and that whole trend that's going there.
And that's the direction I was going to go with.
Yeah.
The NFL is already, in my opinion, they're already struggling because they've pissed so many people off with what they've allowed their players to do and
Yeah.
get away with. And I see a lot in my feeds of I look at football as entertainment. I don't go to football or professional sports to learn people's political ideas. I just want to be entertained. So I think they need to. I think all professional sports probably need to get away from the politicization.
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 Well-
I'm trying to
everything.
screw it up more for
Just-
you,
Or
Craig.
polarization.
Just-
Well,
Or
certainly
polarization.
That. Certainly
Yeah.
that. I won't.
Just play the game.
You guys know this. I've said this to you before. I am not a fan of professional sports because of what they're doing, even more so today than they have in the past. I won't spend any money on professional sports.
Look at
None.
when football went on
Seriously.
strike how many years ago? How many people did they lose? And how many years did that take to actually probably start to come back? Or
Well-
not football, baseball. Sorry, when baseball went on strike.
Well, and the irony of I'm going to throw him out there, LeBron James, and wanting social justice and this and this and this, and he's making hundreds of millions of dollars on Nike contracts and this and that, and Nike is having children make their shoes in third world countries.
Oh yeah,
Pennies
it's
on
so,
the dollar.
Wow.
Like,
it's so hypocritical.
come
Wow.
on, man.
All of it.
Come on, man.
And but the thing is I was so excited that this was going to be good news. I really was. Like, I thought if they're raising to $6 million per commercial, that means to me that they have a lot of viewers. That means people are excited about it.
Right.
I don't think so.
But it's not the case.
I
When
looked at it
you
as
look
they're
at-
desperate
darts.
and they
They're
have to.
desperate.
They know they
But if
only
you're
have so
desperate,
many.
you'd lower the price.
But
I
they
think
know
they're
that
trying
there's
to-
4 or 5 companies that will pay for it.
Yeah.
I think that they're trying to falsify the confidence, is what I think.
Plus-
I
That's
would
saying this is a record high. This is great. And that was the initial gut reaction that I have, is my point.
Mhm.
But then you look at it as factual, and that's not the case.
And if
They're
they could
losing
get-
numbers like crazy.
And you said their viewership of under 50 is dropping drastically. Well, get a decent halftime show that's going to cater to the 50 and under crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't
Well, I
watched
think
the
But
they,
Super
look
Bowl
they
at-
in
they claim that they were, but
Could you imagine working in sales for that right now for NBC? Only because they said they have the Olympics also to sell ads for, and
summer and winter Olympics.
summer and winter Olympics to also sell ads for, and then the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they're trying to
Wow.
work them all together as like a package deal.
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. Anyway,
Good luck.
before
And who's
we-
watching TV anyways anymore, right? Isn't everything online, like watching podcasts?
And
Yeah,
they talk about that in the
I mean-
article too, is so many people are trying to live stream things so they can avoid those commercials.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So that, yeah,
Yeah, it's just interesting, and that's why we do it, to look at things in different ways and provoke thought, I guess. Before we move on to the local segment, we're getting comments, and we're gonna touch base on your comments here coming up. We appreciate them very much. In fact, I do get the question asked, how can we help support the show? The biggest thing is hammer the share button, right, Craig?
That's right.
Hammer it, not the table.
Nope. Nope.
At the table,
But
Martha.
hammer the share button. That really helps. We don't make money at this. We're volunteers. It's just important. If you want to support, if you like the show, hammer the share button, hammer the like button, give us comments. That's really great. It really does help. And whatever, it is what it is. We're here to do it. I can't remember who said it, but the quote's coming up in, I do like a weekday quote. You guys know that. It's coming up. Do it for the deed, not for the glory. And I'm not saying it verbatim, but I do what I do for the deed, not for the glory. And it's certainly not for the paycheck.
Love that.
No.
Love
So,
that.
but
So that's on
someone-
one of your daily quotes. We'll
Yeah,
have
it's
to watch
coming
for
up.
that.
Yeah,
Love that.
I can't remember the exact date, but in July here it's coming up. But or maybe the end of June. I don't remember. Anyway, that's not what's important. What's important is doing it for the deed, not for the glory. And if you do it for the deed first, maybe glory will come, maybe a paycheck will come. Who knows? But do it for the right reasons first.
That's
Integrity.
That's a bonus. That's
That- yeah.
You got lucky,
Right.
but you shouldn't be looking for that.
Right.
Stuff.
Yeah. That's just my opinion, the way I think. But
I agree with
we're going to move into the local segment, and even if you're not in our local area, some of these similar things might be happening in your local area. So hang on tight, and let's talk about free swimming turned into a free for all.
Oh, wow.
Why Rochester pools shut down in the middle of a heat wave. Overwhelming numbers amid hot weather and free access helped fuel safety concerns during open swim times. So city officials are working on a plan to address issues. Talks about people here jumping over the Soldiers Field pool fence, fighting with fellow patrons and lifeguards, and ignoring the rules led to the shutdown of Rochester's 2 public pools. On
Thank gosh we
Wednesday.
still have police officers, because it sounded like they needed to call a police officer.
Do we still have police officers? I'm not sure.
Well,
social workers.
we do. We have police officers in Rochester.
But then, the pools reopen with added help and some ground rules.
Which they should have had to begin with.
Thank you. Yes.
So it talks about how they have this app now or whatever. You have to register online, blah, blah, blah. It helps them to keep track of people. Now, get this. They register people to
Keep track
of them for COVID purposes.
But they didn't have that 2 weeks before that when it was
I
a free
know.
for all.
Oh, I know. And so then let's what's a lot of fun for me is what readers of the Post Bulletin had said. It's a few from Facebook. It says here, I'm glad they are closing the pool. Maybe they will learn the pool is a privilege. This metaphor writes itself. Government benefits at no cost to the recipient. Overwhelmed staff stand down rules enforcement. Absent parents, no respect for authority. This really is happening in all aspects of our society. The public has been waiting for over a year to experience some normalcy in public activities, and this is what happens. This lack of parental supervision and attentiveness is so disappointing. Participating in normal public activities involves following the rules. I guess some parents didn't get the memo. And there's a couple other comments here. You guys can go on. We have the links and stuff. So just look for the links for the articles right here on my page. Woo!
Ooh, I'll chime in. So I was a lifeguard. Hard to believe. It was like 25 years ago.
Awesome.
And
Holy cow, were you like 10?
11. I read at a 13-year-old age though. So when I was a lifeguard, we were there to protect the patrons of the pool. And if we saw something inappropriate, you'd get a warning and then you were done. There was zero tolerance.
Just for the record, let the record show that I never got any warnings at pools.
A whistle is a warning.
What?
And
That is?
not kind of.
Yeah.
And
But did you notice how I said I did not get a warning?
Oh,
right, so you never got catcalled.
you got
Not
many.
just I didn't get
You
just
got
one
many.
warning. I
You
got a
got
whole
many.
bunch.
A whole bunch. Gotcha. Good
Mostly
point.
for not like just for diving in stupid places or
Oh
you
my
know
gosh,
stuff like
man.
that.
running on the
I
pull
mean,
back or
just
whatever.
not really like fighting. I wasn't fighting with anybody. I'm just really sort of trivial. But point being, before you move on, Craig, is that you have to have rules to be taught, right?
Yes.
And you have to break the rules sometimes, not understanding the why behind the rule.
Right.
And so what I see in the rules that I broke as a youngster, the explanation was there.
Right.
Don't
Why
dive
can't
on
you-
this end
why can't
because
you
then the
run on the
lifeguards
wet
would
pool
take
then?
the time, literally, with a crowded pool, would come over and say, "Hey, here's why I blew the whistle at you.
Yep.
This is why it,
This is
help
why
you
we
to
have
think,
these
provoke
rules."
thought, right?
Right. Yep.
Instead of just dropping the hammer and you're an a-hole kid, get out."
Right. And
Anyway, go ahead.
That's a
I'm
good
done.
point. And this story, I mean, there, in my opinion, there's a breakdown from so many levels. And first and foremost, the city council approved for free admission this summer with struggling budgets. I don't understand why they would do that, even if you charge $2.
I think it was $2 back when I was going.
Yeah, something
Right.
to cover some of your costs, but that's not why this happened. The leadership was not prepared for the pools to open. They were
Nonstop,
understaffed. They didn't have enough lifeguards, and they didn't follow their own rules. Pools have capacity limits, and the capacity limits are how many lifeguards you have. And if they didn't have enough lifeguards for 500 kids, why did they let 500 kids through the gates? If kids are jumping the fence, I don't need to explain to you why you can't jump the fence into a pool. You need to go
for
through the
sure.
gate or you're gone. Like, there's zero tolerance for that. And we're the parents to teach their kids to not jump the fence to get into a pool. You can't jump the fence to go to a Twins game or a football game.
Sure you
So
can.
why do they think it's right to do it there? So that there's a failure in parenting. Parents were dropping off their kids.
Don't
to
blame
these
it on the
games.
parents.
I'm going to blame the parents. And there was a failure in the leadership in the city. They were understaffed. They didn't have any control on who was getting
Why
into
does
these.
Rochester only have 2 pools?
And one of them was closed. They had Silver Lake closed because they had a pipe issue. So the
I'm not
hottest
ragging.
week of
I'm
the-
not ragging on it specifically,
I
but
am.
that was that's fine. But I look at the population of the city of Rochester and only 2 pools. Now, granted, they have like Foster Aaron,
They foster Aaron. They have Cascade Lake and they have Rec Center.
but Cascade was closed down.
So
Something else was closed down too.
yeah,
I can't
Cascade Lake.
remember
There's
what it was. I looked
there's
at
a
it.
contract to finish mining Cascade Lake. So right now, Cascade Lake, the brand new multi-million-dollar public park lake, is only open Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays, so that they can mine the sand out of it Monday through Friday morning.
Wow.
Well, they can control when there's mining there. So the hottest week of the year, maybe tell the mining companies, let's just hold off so that people have a place to go to cool off.
Yeah.
Because not everybody has air conditioning. So again, failure in leadership to have the forethought to make accommodations so that people can cool off. It was 95 degrees. And
All
there's
week long,
one
yeah.
pool open in Rochester, because I know the rec center is pretty packed on their schedule, so I don't believe they have a lot of open swim. Foster Aaron is not easily accessible for the vast majority of Rochester because it's on the north side of town. Silver Lake is pretty centralized. Soldiers Field is pretty centralized. Kids can ride there on their bike.
And you were even talking about some of the local areas too, the towns surrounding Rochester, like Byron and different things like that. Right.
Well, Byron, Shannon said they're struggling with even getting lifeguards, but
Right.
Castamanaville has a great water park. Stewartville has a great water park.
Right.
How many people from Rochester took their kids to the small
And it's an outdoor activity.
and paid to go to those pools
Right.
because they had better facilities?
Right.
And that's been the struggle with Silver Lake Pool is it's old, their numbers are down, and even the articles show that the reservations at Silver Lake were considerably high. Sorry, the reservations at Soldiers Field were considerably higher than the reservations at Silver Lake. Well, why is that? That doesn't mean you should shut down Silver Lake. That means you need to improve Silver Lake to draw people to that pool.
Right.
So, but in my opinion, it's just a complete failure on so many levels. The city leadership, the person that was in charge of the Rochester Public Pools, the parents that didn't teach their kids how to be respectful, the local swim club who was basically contracted out this year to supply the lifeguards. They didn't have enough lifeguards for the situations. But then how do you control that? You control the amount of people that go in.
Well, that's true, but why is there a shortage of lifeguards? That gets back to our other story where
And you have to be certified to be a lifeguard. And it's not the highest paying job in the world. To me, it was a pretty fun job. I mean, there's stress involved, but in the scheme of things, it's not a bad job. On a busy day like that, when there's 400 or 500 kids in the pool, that can get stressful. But that's part of the job. You make up for it when it's 70 degrees and overcast and you have 3 kids in the pool.
Going back to the article, so now you have an app that you register or check in on, and then it's shut down for like a half-hour time. So you have a time slot that you register for that you are slotted for.
They're
compared
like 2
to
slots.
what?
They're like 2 hour time
Right.
slots or something.
But then they shut down for cleaning time. So I just was curious, were they not doing COVID cleaning before this whole big fiasco?
It's a good question.
That is a good question, and I think we should keep an eye on this because we're just starting summer, really.
Right.
And I think we should keep an eye on some of this and talk about it in our local segment again. I'm sure there'll be some other things, to watch and look for.
And I'll go back to the COVID thing. You're outside. You have sunlight.
Right.
You have
Heat.
chlorine.
Yeah.
So is COVID going to be a concern in our pools?
Well, yeah.
Ask
All
Dr.
of those,
Fauci.
haven't you heard? All
I
of those
seen a
things
girl.
accelerate that.
I seen a girl on a bounce mat outside
Hey, no
with
hammer
a
on the
mask
table.
on. Wait, sorry, with a mask. She was outside in the heat of Wisconsin on a bounce trampoline thing with a mask on, all by herself with a mask on.
There's a video of a dude swimming in a pool with a mask.
There's
It's
people
hilarious.
in oceans and stuff I've seen too. It's I think hopefully it was done more for comical purposes. But hey, before we head into the comments, I wanted to prove something to you guys.
Oh,
and I did that last week.
What's that?
And a very non-political, non-opinionated piece that we did for Shiny. We can't buy ads to promote the podcast. Remember that, what I sent you last week?
Oh, sure, yeah.
After the podcast, I tried to on Facebook and on YouTube, and they were both rejected. So if you're listening, watching right now, go to last week's episode about what it means to be shiny and watch it, listen to it, put it on in the background. I listen to podcasts when I'm mowing. I just put my headphones on and cruise around and or driving and, whatever. It's just background noise, right? Or, cooking or something. So do that. And then tell me why we shouldn't be able to purchase an ad to promote the podcast. It is because the algorithms do not like us talking about some of these things in specific throughout the entire site. Things that are factual, but not necessarily going with the agenda of Facebook and YouTube. And so I say that because the algorithms will pick up on your shares, your likes, your comments, and say, hey, people want to see this, want to listen to this. So that does really help the show because we literally can't purchase to promote it. And I think that says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why are they scared?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I have a teeny tiny platform. I had never heard of, have you heard of Steven Crowder?
No.
He's really big, like one of the biggest YouTubers, but he's a conservative. And he was banned from YouTube for a while, twice. Yeah, and it was crazy. And I watched, and I never heard of him until he got banned, literally.
It's probably good advertising for him.
Yeah. And so, but he sued YouTube, and we'll see where that goes. But that's how I heard about it, is because he did get banned. But he's huge. enormous. And I go on YouTube all the time, and it has never been recommended that I watch Steven Crowder.
Wow.
It goes back, and
It's got like 6 million people or something on YouTube.
How many millions do we have?
Yes.
Keep sharing, everybody.
Oh yeah, keep sharing. Overall, the truth is overall, I do my platform, specifically Facebook, gets about we're back up to about 90 to 100,000 people every month that sees what I do on Facebook, and our we're up, like there's 30,000 interactions or whatever every month and stuff now again. So it's building back up, but which is great. And again, do it for the deed, not for the glory.
And our First
But
Amendment
it says,
right.
I think my point being, though, I think it says a lot about what real transparent thought is. We're not giving advice. We're not trying to push an agenda. We're just trying to look at things from hopefully a rational perspective and just open up people's thoughts. And
Conversations. We're just having conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I started adding up. I went through some of my emails the other day, and I started adding up all the people that have said no to me. And it's hundreds of people that have said no, they won't come on the podcast.
Wow.
And sit down and turn the camera on, and I was like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. But
And yet
the
Craig
point-
and I said yes.
the point being, though, is that it's really interesting, and it's starting to be transparent to me about the tribal mentality, as a lot of people are calling it. People want to rage bait on with their tribe, and aren't we the human race tribe? And that's really my point. And so if you're not doing things that are tribally based, you're literally, the algorithms try not to show it to people, unless it's of one tribe.
Right.
And I think everybody understands what I'm saying. And I think that's just so wrong on so many levels. And it gives me a little bit of fuel to keep trying to be transparent on what facts are and what real numbers are, and how even that article that we talked about today, with the 4 million people that have quit. One article is trying to spin it in a very positive way, and the other article is simply factual. Like 20 years, we haven't seen anything like it, and things like that. So it is what it is. But thank you so much for watching, listening. We're going to hit your comments now. We have a good morning. We have an amen. We have probably England, and so that they can't have guns is a comment. So obviously that's our gun. We also have a comment that says, I say no permits necessary. Another one that is here, gun laws only help the criminals who don't follow the law. I completely agree with that. What do you think? Those few comments.
Yeah. They don't care about permits. They don't care about.
they're not following the law.
Yeah.
That's why they're
Someone's saying
criminals.
hi to Martha May.
Carolyn fan club.
Yeah.
I know, and I love it. Might I
Thank you.
suggest that it isn't just people quitting because of pay, but many parents were put in a position of having to choose between going to work and schooling their children. That's a good point. I'm not sure because I've homeschooled for going on 7 years, but schools were closed, and I'm sure daycare doesn't take on the responsibility of distance learning. That's a really good point. Yeah.
But wouldn't that have
And that's
taken
why
effect
that's exactly why we're doing this. Let's get some thoughts,
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have taken effect April of last year, though, and not just April of this year?
Well, there's still a lot of distance learning in places, and certainly they're making it an option for people and stuff. So it's probably it's a ripple effect, though, in a lot of ways and cases.
And not that I disagree with the comment. I think it's a very valid argument of parents still doing that, because even if it's not COVID, even if it's they don't want their kids in the public schools.
Right. And I think that's brought a lot of things to light with a lot of parents. And now they decided this year and going forward, they were going to do homeschooling.
Totally. It's multiple levels there.
You bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are moving out of communities because of the direction of the schools.
Yeah.
I've got multiple clients right now that they're moving out of their community because they don't agree with what the schools are doing. So, or they're homeschooling.
Yeah.
Another comment, not to mention the fact that daycare is expensive. Yes, that's true. I know people who have not gone back to work because they can't do daycare. They can't afford it. So that's a good point. Manual labor is a great thing. Unfortunately, kids are programmed to believe that if you want to be successful, you need to be a doctor or a computer genius. Kids aren't taught to be entrepreneurs and in the trades. That is true. However, I think that I've seen a lot of things. They are the trades are being pushed a little bit more now. They're seeing some of that effect. So I will say that I've seen that a lot more in some of the things that I with schools and stuff. For some reason, this comment got cut off, but I can read most of it. I will have to say, every one of my 5 adult kids worked through the pandemic. They refused to take the free money, but unfortunately, that is not how it works for everyone. My kids were thankful that I was there to help with their children's distance learning and caring for them, because I felt that's what a grandparent should be doing when the government isn't doing their job and enabling people to not work so they can crush the American economy and then blame it on the people who didn't go to work. I imagine that last word says, and then it got cut off for some reason. I apologize for that, but yeah, wow. I'm glad that they kept working. You know, it's a lot of people chose not to, made the excuse of they're scared with the, I don't know if I want to go down that path. Never mind.
We only have so much time.
We're actually a little over time already, but
maybe for next week.
You raised your children right. Great job, Mom. I totally agree. It is the citizens who need to stand up. So must be talking about what you said with your kids and grandkids, I think.
I think so. My nephews, you bet.
Yeah.
Still
Or
good work
nephew,
ethics.
sorry.
Well,
My
and
bad.
even, like I said, I had paper out, I had 4-H, I had basketball. Every night my mom had something going on for us that taught us to multitask, that taught us good business, that taught us good involvement, different things like that, whatever we volunteered for. And Craig, like you're talking about, like scholarships, to write down different things and apply for your first job, or I traded in a moped on my first car. A moped I bought with my paper out money on my first car. It was a Camaro. So all those things that you look forward to.
You can't be on the
first car
show
was a
anymore,
Camaro.
Martha May.
You
No
bet.
Camaro loving people.
I'm a Ford girl, but it was a Camaro, and I painted it myself. So, anyways, and showed it myself. So,
Yeah, I love
anyways,
it. Fun fact:
But yeah.
TV programming was originally meant to be free to everyone. Commercials paid for the programming to be free. That's absolutely right.
wow.
Not nowadays.
I've got a comment here. I couldn't agree more. I'm not sure which segment we were in at that time.
What's the timestamp on it?
9:40, 9:39.
So it would have been Texas then.
So yeah, it must no.
No, Texas was
we were
early.
way early.
No, Texas early.
Also, just thinking about the term programming, programming the masses. We are paying to be brainwashed. Wow, somebody's on a rant. And then Bahaha social workers.
But we have to go back to that, because Olmsted County does use that program, but in conjunction with police officers and law enforcement
For now.
officers. So
And I will touch back on the pools. As hindsight is 2020, they are getting some local volunteer groups to go in and help around this at the pools to help not police kids, but help
assist.
work with the kids and make
Yeah.
sure that they're being understood.
That's great. That's a great community involvement. What a great
And this is a great
volunteers.
comment for the pools. I stopped going to public schools when my oldest daughter was like 6 months old, and we went to Soldiers Field. They put my stuff in a locker, and it was packed. So I decided to leave only to go back to the locker, and my stuff was stolen. Actually, I remember that happening a lot when I was a teenager and stuff there too.
Well, now it's not
bad.
just your sneakers; it's your smartphone and your
right.
iPad, and a little more money involved.
So we have one here that says they were planning on shutting down Silver Lake Pool indefinitely.
Mhm.
The city also comments saying the city claimed it wasn't making enough money for upkeep. Comment here, the rec center doesn't have much open swim time. No, they still don't anymore. I mean, they never did when I was growing up
only
either.
like
but
2 sessions a day when I was younger.
okay.
And they're booked with multiple swim clubs in town. It's
Okay.
a busy pool.
Sure. The city would rather spend taxpayer money on dead flower art and bike paths.
Well,
All of our fans are on today.
And paying the electric bill for leaving the Civic Center lights on 24/7. Another comment here that got cut off. I don't know. The program here for some reason is that we use to live stream is cutting off lengthy comments. So I apologize. I can't read the whole thing, but Byron is having a lot of the same problems. I have been hearing complaints of the same. I think kids should always be supervised well in the water. Absolutely agree with that. It's sad when older kids are not following the simple rules put in place. Swim, have fun, it's easy. Free admission is nice, but with COVID, I feel like so many people are using it as a backup. Backup in so many places. That's true.
yeah.
It's important to do what the community feels is safe, but you go anywhere, they blame COVID for a lot of when it comes to any problems. It's true. You just, I know. I guess, I'm going to say I was having a conversation with somebody and we were talking about it, and COVID is like the new terrorism buzzword after 9/11.
We talked about that.
Yeah.
We talked about
cop
that.
out on every problem.
Right. It's scary. I
It's
don't
a
know.
catch-all. Whatever
So
it is.
keep
it's
an eye
COVID.
on that.
It's
Definitely
COVID's
keep
fault.
an eye on that.
COVID.
You should start your own website. That way you don't have to worry about censoring. Yes, I have been working on that, and it takes a boatload of money to do that, unfortunately, as I have sadly found out. It's reality, and it's tens of thousands of dollars to do a stream like this
Wow.
on a website.
Wow.
A lot, because you always rely on either YouTube links on a website, and I didn't even fully understand that, but we might switch over to Rumble if they can live stream successfully. They've just started doing that, and some of that Rumble is so far been pretty good with no censorship. I'm also on Gab. Minds, they don't censor either. But those are small platforms in comparison. And unfortunately, we have to say the 99 things that we can say, I believe. We've talked about that also, and not say all 100, because the one thing that we can't really say, why shut down the entire, podcast just for the one thing? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. LOL, Martha May. Okay. You all will get there. Also, many parents have found what schools are teaching. That's true. I've talked to actually a lot of people. Some people dropping some names. We're not going to comment on that live. But hey, that is the show. I have to my right.
Always right. No, I'm not. I'm not always right. I'm just right of you. Martha Makashani.
Right of me.
Yeah. I am to the right of you.
To the right.
Literally.
To my left.
Craig Uglin, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram.
I am Matt Logan of Matt Logan Speaks. Speaks is not my last name. I got another comment the other day. Speaks is not. Logan is. You can find me on Minds, Gab, Parlor, all of them. I just try to provoke thought. It's literally what I try to do. I've said that since my daughter died, and I try to do it in a I guess, factual way, but it is to provoke thought so that we can really look at things and not just go along with the crowd. Because Albert Einstein did say that you can go further if you don't try to go with the crowd. And
Amen.
I'm paraphrasing, but anyway, very
Amen.
wise, very wise. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.